despite some progress in addressing its compliance with the global anti-money laundering watchdog, South Africa has come up short in the investigation and prosecution of money laundering and terror finance cases. Now, in February last year, South Africa was grey-listed by the Financial Action Task Force for shortcomings in tackling illicit financial flows. Let's get more insights now about some of the tools the country can use to fast-track compliance with the task force's strict measures. I'm joined now by Rahn Monitor Roché Pretorius. Roché, looking at some of the services you provide in terms of your company, how can South Africa better equip itself in fighting money laundering and the movement of illicit flows?
Thank you, Matteo. Yeah, so there's a fundamental thing that most organizations can do, and that represents one of the fundamental processes that's required from an anti-money laundering perspective, and that's understanding who you are doing business with. So who's the person sitting on the other side of the room, and what are their intentions with your business?
Now, looking at what Rahn does, you run some searches on different things, whether it's the clients or people that could be hired on a company board or a CEO. Tell us about some of these services that you run in terms of monitoring the people that do business with multinationals and corporates, and how this helps to make sure that there are no breaches and fraudulent activities.
Yeah, so there's various tools or various aspects to that. From an anti-money laundering perspective, there's the sanctions listings. So your major OFAC, UN sanctions lists that most countries that want to comply with anti-money laundering legislation worldwide typically refer to. From an appointment and an employee risk perspective, there's obviously a lot of background checks that can be done. And with the availability of public information, there's a lot out there that can be put together and understood in a very short amount of time using the skill sets and the tools that we have available to us today with the technologies like artificial intelligence, etc.
Now, without giving any confidential details, just give us some of the examples that come with monitoring and going through some of these lists. If I were to apply for a job, for instance, at a bank, what sort of information and red flags would you look into my profile to give to your clients?
Look, so from a banking perspective, there's been standards around that for a very long time in terms of looking at qualifications and verifying those, and obviously looking at criminal records. But obviously then there's the cases of looking at people's backgrounds and their associations with organizations, their associations with terrorist organizations, for example, and then also looking at if they are actually sanctioned individuals, are they related to any political influential people, or are they also related to individuals that could potentially influence their behavior that would lend them to relax controls and make sure that money launderers can actually use banking systems or insurance systems or any financial service provider, use their back-end systems to actually engage in illicit activity.
We've seen a lot of criminals now move online to do these fraudulent activities. In fact, this week we saw one of the largest pension fund holders in the government employee pension fund getting that particular red flag that it was almost hacked by some of these dark web operators. How does the compliance go in South Africa in trying to make sure that we don't have these particular breaches?
Look, so there's fundamental breaches that you've got to consider. So from a technology perspective, it's staying abreast with all the security protocols that are currently being used and used worldwide. So there's very rigorous standards, and it's a very advanced industry with many professionals around that. That's only one aspect. There's obviously the human aspect as well, and that is what are your employees doing? What are what's your clients doing with your system? Are people working together to leverage your products and your services to actually commit these crimes or obfuscate their crimes by hiding the money? Because obviously money laundering, one of the main factors around that is to hide the actual source of the money or the actual person whose money it is. To try and obfuscate the rules that are there, or move around the rules and make sure that people can actually do what they need to, what they want to do. So it's fundamental to understand that you've got a security concept, a component to it, but there's also the human component, and that's where we try and understand what's going on, who the actual individual is that's sitting across the table from you.
Now, the Financial Action Task Force has South Africa on the grey list, and government is doing most that it can. I know there are funds of around 300 million rand to try get us off that particular list in making sure we do comply with the measures in front of us. But just how much investment would we need as a country to make sure that we're fully compliant and also can withstand some of these breaches?
Yeah, so there's numerous things, if I recall correctly, were 8 items that we had to address. And, so you look at what they've done, the government's done in terms of CIPC to enable the beneficial ownership. That's been a massive investment from their side, from an infrastructure perspective, to make it available to companies like us, so we can service our clients with providing them the information they need to understand if a company is registering with you, are the shareholders that they say they are actual shareholders, or are they fronts that are owned by other people or criminals that actually use these companies, and legitimate people that seem legitimate, that don't have a criminal record or are on sanctions list, to hide as the forefront of the business, but in actual fact at the back end, it could be criminals. Then also just, from a government perspective, they're putting a lot of processes. Legislation has been passed. There's a lot that's been done from that perspective, but also from a business perspective or a private sector perspective, there's a lot that we should do and can do, especially looking at what Mr. Milan from the FIC mentioned recently, that the estate agents and legal professionals are at this point in time far behind with submitting their reports. Getting those reports out and understanding what the implications are of the law and what it asks of us from a non-financial businesses and professionals as well. So there we're looking at the gambling industry, we're looking at trust and trust administrators, we're looking at legal professionals and estate agents. Property is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, loophole at the moment where people can get money washed, and it's being used all over the country. So getting estate agents on board is going to be a fundamental part of combating this crime.
Now, Rahn Monitor also using artificial intelligence, a fairly new technology, a big buzzword around the world, and a lot of companies trying to get their chip stocks in order to lead in AI technology. What are you using your AI technology for in terms of monitoring some of this money laundering activities?
So we've got 2 fundamental use cases for it at the moment. The first one is enhancing the information we have available. So all of the information that we collect and store in the databases that we put together for our sanctions listing, it all comes from public domain. So these are listings that are put up to, the various websites by the publishers of these lists. We then take that and augment that in real time while we're doing searches. So on our system, if a client picks up a potential hit that they would like to investigate further, they can put that through our artificial intelligence chatbot or bot, and it will then return back real life information from the internet real time as it's connected straight to the internet, and provides that information. So that cuts down the necessity to employ massive teams that have to do all the research to enhance this information, and then obviously that's got a cost benefit for our clients. The second use case is to actually look at patterns in transaction monitoring data to try and identify where we can find patterns that we as humans are missing, where the artificial intelligence could potentially pick that up.
All right, Roché, thank you so much for your time. That was Rahn Monitor CEO Roché Pretorius.